Who are the world's most interesting people? And what fascinating, groundbreaking, incredible things can they teach us? In this new series, I leave our Science of People lab to interview my favorite authors, experts, and celebrities for them to share their best people hacks, social skills, and stories. And let me tell you, they have some juicy tips. This is a new series I'm calling The World's Most Interesting People. Welcome, everyone. We are in another episode of The World's Most Interesting People, and I have today my personal friend and an incredibly talented entrepreneur, Zach Suchin. So let me give you his professional bio first, and then I'll go into my personal bio. In 2006, this is what you really have to know about Zach. In 2006, he was the youngest CEO of a publicly traded company in the US, which is incredible. Today, he runs Brand New, which works with huge brands in their digital presence, including YouTube, Stand Up to Cancer, and many, many more. We are so happy to have you, Zach. Say hello.
Thank you, Vanessa. I'm wondering who fell off your list today for you to sit down and talk to me, but I appreciate it.
No, I begged you on this call because he is so busy. I was like, Zach, can you do it? Now, my personal bio, which I think is much more interesting. Zach and I went to college together, went to Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia. And Zach was the very first person I ever met at Emory. He was like my guide, my mentor, my angel as I was going through Emory. And a little fun story about Zach is, so I met Zach, got along great. I was like, okay, I know someone going to college. I get to college and everyone knows Zach. He was that guy. Everyone knows him. He had so many connections, so many friends. And little did I know, in the background, he was building this amazing company so that I think upon graduation, you went public, right? Was it right after graduation?
That was right after graduation.
So he is a baller, and I am so excited to talk to him today, specifically about your company strategy now at Brand New. We talk a lot about hiring and culture and our approach to people. What is kind of a company culture? How does it work at Brand New, and how do you approach it?
I think that the challenge is that culture is such an overused word.
Yes.
Silicon Valley, Silicon Beach, what do they call New York? Silicon Alley?
And we're Silicon Forest in Oregon.
Silicon Forest.
Yeah.
But you guys recycle more up there.
That's true. That's true. We might compete with Seattle for that one.
Okay, fair enough. Good coffee. It's the number one thing that people preach. I think, especially during the hiring process. Mm-hmm. When I talk with other people who founded companies, it doesn't matter whether it's an agency or a technology company. The millennial generation is heavily invested in finding a work experience where the culture is good. And so the output of that is that many, many founders walk around touting their culture. Mm-hmm. But while the concept is to an extent hackneyed, it is the most meaningful thing that you can build. Not your tech product, not your client roster, but the meaningful interactions that people have internally every day. And culture for us of course, it's something we heavily focus on. It is the notion that you spend more time in an office with these people than you do with your family.
Yeah.
Even if you're in a loving, committed relationship like you. It is the responsibility of the people at the helm to ensure that the environment is one where people feel comfortable, because people do their best work when they're comfortable. And I don't mean not challenged, but comfortable to the extent that they are able to function optimally, that they can express themselves, that they genuinely enjoy the people that they're surrounded by. And I really think that my greatest achievement is the people that we have brought into this place and sold into the vision of what Brand New is building, because I feel extraordinarily lucky, genuinely, mm-hmm. to come into this office every day and be surrounded by some of my favorite people. So culture is freedom of expression, freedom of creativity, and of course, from organization to organization, there are these subtle nuances, but that's generally for us what it means.
So it's interesting. I got to work with your team. I think it was maybe 2 or 3 years ago. I did a kind of digital presentation, and I was really blown away by the feeling in the office. As you mentioned the word comfort, and I didn't know that before we just spoke. I didn't know that was actually something you work towards. It felt like we were in a office living room a little bit, and everyone was on very equal footing. So my question is, this is I think the biggest trap people fall into. what mistakes have you made along the way where you had to course correct, or I don't know if it was a bad hire or a bad choice, or you got off track? Was there any mistakes that kind of you went, ooh, we got off, and what did you learn from them?
Failure is the greatest professor. So if you can't look back at your missteps and value them greatly and understand how they teach you, how the teachings lend towards all of your future decisions, then it's a major missed opportunity. Mm-hmm. And I think that the most difficult thing for me, I consider myself a perpetual student. I don't have an MBA. I really think, I have an MBA from the streets, so to speak, which is probably the whitest thing I've ever said. But it's a serious consideration of how to. By the way, Siri is going off right now. I didn't say anything about Siri. I said serious, and now yours is going off too.
Yeah. Shh.
Let's just have them talk. Let's just have them talk and see.
We'll just have them do the interview. I like it. We'll have them do the interview. That shows how digitally connected we are.
The difficulty, the challenge for me is in trying to develop over the years a grand stature where people will respect the hierarchy of the organization, but also being a relatable figure where literally anybody feels comfortable coming into my office because my door is open. Mm-hmm. And it's much more rewarding to feel that, and I have this relationship with all 32 other people here where I know a lot about them personally when they come into my office. Because we don't have a head of HR. We will in about 2 weeks, but that's a major infrastructural consideration for us, as you and I have discussed. It is really important to try to find that balance between being liked at a level of friendliness and also being respected in terms of making decisions that people aren't always going to agree with. Mm-hmm. And of course, as you know, it's impossible to please everybody. So if the fundamental tenets of the business are collaboration and respect and the notion that complacency is dangerous, then I think it's a recipe for really good progress. And of course, we've had scenarios where we've hired people that didn't fit, and we go through a really tough interview process with people.
Which I want to talk about.
Yeah, you know about that. To ensure that we feel like people are positioned for success, because there are incredible people who come through the door. They could have a Harvard MBA, undergrad at Stanford, and we just don't think that they culturally fit. Mm-hmm. So we've certainly made errors in judgment in bringing people in, and I think the key is always to try to identify that as quickly as possible. Mm-hmm. And our philosophy is if it doesn't work here, we have a responsibility to an extent to then help them find their next role. Mm-hmm. Because the burden is on us for having brought them in. And just because it's not a good fit, assuming the person is not rude or combative, to help them find their next step in their occupational.
Wow, I had no idea that you do that. That's a really also wonderful way to make sure that they are feeling taken care of even after they leave you. You mentioned something about complacency, and I think this is really important for our viewers. I think a lot about complacency and ambivalence. I think those are two very dangerous sides of the same coin. And also, complacency and ambivalence come from two sides. One, there's you as a boss being complacent about someone who isn't working or someone who isn't a good fit. And there's also an employee or even a friend who's being complacent about trying to make it a better fit. And so when we think about complacency, we have to think about both sides. And this is for both work environments. So if you're an employee and you're going, I don't know if this is working for me, but I don't know how to change it. Or if you're a friend, you're in a relationship and you're like, I don't know if this relationship is working for me, but I don't know how to change it. And that ambivalence or that not willing to take action is one of the biggest detriments to our success and our improvement. So, and that's, I had never heard about that on the hiring side before. Speaking of hiring, you know that I was going to ask you about this. So Zach and I have talked a lot about how do you hire the right people? How do you find the right people amongst a pool of incredible talent and candidates? So you have an intense interview process, and you asked me, I think maybe a year ago, Vanessa, what interview questions do you love for interviewing candidates? And I think you picked one of mine, but you have a list of how long is your interview question list, or does it kind of vary?
It's always, well, I don't always ask everybody every question. Mm-hmm. So for example, if somebody walks in and I know that they're not the right fit, they get about 2 questions.
Ooh.
But given that the person is of interest to us, We usually go the distance and we ask the full 22 questions.
Whew. So can you give us 3 of those questions? I want to walk through 3 of those questions. You can pick your favorites, and let's talk about why they work or how they've, found someone who either was or wasn't a fit based on their answers. And I'm happy to talk them through with you.
Okay. Well, let's start with this. This is specific to agency life.
Okay.
The question is, would you prefer to be doing awful work and the client's incredibly happy, or would you prefer to be doing incredible work and the client is extremely dissatisfied?
Yep. Okay. So when you ask that question, do you get both answers? Do people actually answer both sides?
There are 3 responses to that. One is they answer one way, one is they answer the other way, and then the third is that they are unable to answer the question and they go off on a tangent.
Okay.
So even when we think there are 2 responses, there's usually 3.
Yeah.
This is a scenario where I don't know what the right answer is.
Oh.
And I don't always ask a question knowing exactly what I want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we're a creative organization. For me, the most important part of a response is the creativity that goes into it. I want to understand someone's thought process because it informs how, when they're here, they're going to deal with different types of issues. This is an interesting question to the extent that we've got a lot of startup clients. We've got a lot of world-renowned clients. Through all of them is that there are times when we present really incredible campaigns that for one reason or another are not adopted for actual execution.
Oh.
Then there are times where we suggest something that I think is a little bit too run-of-the-mill. Perhaps it's something that I didn't personally have eyes on, and I hear about retrospectively, and the client loves it. And the question therein lies, what kind of operation do you want to be running? Right. It's difficult. I can't keep the lights on if clients are upset. So we could be doing all this great work, and if the clients don't like it, we're sitting in a bubble by ourselves. It's a tricky one. And it's one of the newer questions that we've asked candidates. So I think only probably 3 or 4 candidates have been through, 3 or 4 candidates that have been hired have been through that specific question.
So what I like about that question is that it quickly shows someone's mindset if they're other-oriented or self-oriented. So in psychology, we think about when someone's frame of reference, is it very much their lens or are they looking through other people's lenses? That question kind of helps identify, are you looking at your work or your day through the client's lens or are you looking at it through your lens? And there's no right or wrong answer, right? It very much depends on your goals, your culture, the role. But this is a really important question for our viewers to think about, which is when you do your work, is it through your lens or your boss's lens or your client's lens or your colleague's lens or a status lens? It kind of highlights that. Okay, next question. I love that one.
This one's a little more out there.
Okay, I like that.
I ask people, what is the largest living being that you would feel comfortable killing with no provocation?
Oh, wow. You must get people who don't answer that question, right? You must.
I do, but now I'm asking you.
Okay. So what's the largest living being that I'd be comfortable killing?
With no provocation. The largest living thing.
With no provocation. I would have to go with my experience, which is probably the size of an insect.
Well, what kind of insect?
Specifically, probably a spider. And it could be a pretty large spider.
Really?
Probably a pretty large spider. And that's
they recently found a spider that was actually cute. It had these big eyes, like a Pixar character. It still had all the creepy legs and hair, but
no, a real one?
Yeah.
Did you let it live?
Oh no, I didn't see this personally. It was somewhere in South America where it belongs.
Okay, I was like, in your offices in LA? That's kind of a terrifying.
Yeah, we discovered this on the interwebs. If our offices was in Arizona, maybe we'd encounter more of those types of arachnids. But the point of this question, I'm trying to understand. I want to understand more about someone's soul. I think that killing animals for no reason is wrong. Obviously, I think that killing people is wrong. If somebody came to me and said, well, a 98-year-old because they've got no life left to live, I'd have a problem with that. I'd probably be out of the interview quicker than you could snap your finger.
Right.
But we've received a full array of different kinds of bizarre answers on this. Some of them are really incredible. So the most common answer is an insect. And then I say, what kind of insect? And people usually say spiders. So
I'm common. I'm common.
But some of the more interesting ones, one person came in and said a terrorist, which I thought was a really interesting designation.
Interesting.
Again, it's the creativity with which someone's thinking about this.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, like, is them being the nature of them being a terrorist, is that provocation enough? Do you know what I mean? Like I wanted to say, like, you know, a baby killer or something like that, but I was like, that's provocation, right? Like that, this just them being that is a kind of provoking me to kill for a reason. And if there was really no provocation, it means that I wouldn't know anything about that species, that being.
Your response is way too intelligent.
That's what I was thinking. That's what I was thinking.
I would never have said a human being myself. Another really interesting response we got was, I honestly don't even remember what the genome or what the species was, but somebody listed a very specific type of mushroom that grows to be extremely large and grows in groups on like a mountainside. And to me, that was such an interesting response. And obviously, the other answers that person gave were in kind, that we ended up hiring him. Again, it's the creativity. We've had people say, well, I like hunting, so I would probably an elephant. My response, I don't know that I absolutely wouldn't hire somebody if they were a hunter, because again, partly that's cultural, and that's a whole, probably another hour discussion that we could have. But I don't like killing animals.
Right.
So it teaches me about, does someone value life? Do they have empathy? Do they have the creativity to give an answer like a mushroom species or a terrorist? Mm-hmm. Things like that.
I'm going to change my answer. I know that's not allowed, but we're going to change my answer.
It is in this menu.
Okay. I would change my answer to yellow ants on Christmas Island, because I just learned that Christmas Island is the only sanctuary for these very special crabs. And because yellow ants came over on boats, they're taking over the island, killing the crabs, and these crabs might go extinct. So I would definitely kill yellow ant in help of preserving and saving these crabs. 100%.
It's altruistic. That's wonderful.
So it took me a little bit, but I got there. Okay. Last question that you asked. Give me your favorite.
Oh, it's so tough to choose three. I'll give you a quick one, and then we're going to do a better fourth one.
Okay. Bonus.
Bonus. Another one we asked, which this is the only one other than the one that you gave me that I pulled from somewhere else, because I just think it's fantastic, is give me in rapid succession 20 different uses for a paperclip.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Picking your teeth, papers, undoing an iPhone back, a
SIM card.
Yeah, exactly. A fake retainer. I could totally. Do you want me to keep going?
You're good. That was an intermission question.
Wait, but everyone at home should try to do that right now, because that is a great test of creativity. Do people like very regularly do all 20?
No. I stop people as I see people getting flustered. So according to where on the scale of white to red their faces, I usually decide that there's a point where we need to stop the creative torture.
You save them. Yeah.
Correct.
That is creativity, right? You're trying to think, how outside the box do they think? A little window into their soul. I love that one.
And can a paperclip be, 60 feet tall? Well, who's to say what the construct of a paperclip is? So we're looking for the most out there, interesting responses possible.
Oh, I like it. I like that one too. And you can also do that one, by the way, with a brick. With any common object. It's a great, great test. Kids are way better than adults. I've done that test with kids. They can like keep going, and adults are like, they get 3, maybe 4. Yep. Yeah. All right. Absolutely. Bonus question, bonus round.
All right, let's do it. Do you have like a theme song for the final question or no?
Do 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 do.
Okay. Yeah. I hope that's the screen grab that you get as a thumbnail.
Yeah. Great.
So I guess the final question I would give you is more of just a command. And this is usually, I always have a box of tissues in the middle of the table in preparation for this question, because it's a question that I think is important to ask, but it often triggers emotion. Oh. And the command is eulogize yourself. Oh. And the reason we asked, and I won't make you eulogize yourself, but the reason that we asked this question is, what does somebody consider a life well lived? And also, are they ending their life in this moment in the room? Like, are they a 25-year, is it a eulogy for a 25-year-old, or is it a eulogy for a 96-year-old?
Right.
The responses vary. We've had men and women cry over that. Unfortunately, the question has been asked of people, which certainly is not the intent, who have recently lost a loved one, and it triggers something. As with any interview, are asked because we want we want specific learnings from each question, but we adapt the interview according to who the person is. And so that's a difficult question to answer. Again, we're looking for creativity. We're looking for a sense of what they think their life is worth and where they think they're going. And again, there are 17 or 18 other questions that we ask along the way, but I'm the third person that they meet. We don't have a very long interview process. And it is so important that we get, and no one's better than you at this, reading all of the different tells from how they conduct themselves in the room, what they're wearing, whether or not they curse. All these different elements are majorly helpful in informing whether or not we think that somebody fits, again, to bring it full circle culturally.
Yeah. What I love about these questions is that they themselves are out of the box. And if you get people who love them, that also tells them something about you and your culture. So here's my takeaway for this interview for everyone watching is, whether you're hiring or not, whether you're interviewing or not, I think that out of the box questions or asking people things to try to understand who they are on a deeper level, not just those socially scripted answers, not the answers they want you to hear. And that's what true relationships are about. Finding people who are great for your company, finding great relationships, finding great partners. And so don't stick to the boring questions. Try to ask people real, thought-provoking, story harvesting questions. You can use Zach's. He gave you 4 today. I'm dying to know if you have any questions like this, put them in the comments below the video so we can check them out. And Zach, I want to thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for watching, guys, and we'll see you in our next YouTube video. Do you like this video? Amazing coincidence, because we like you too. Would you mind giving us some love by liking this video? Thank you, thank you, thank you.